I don't like wasting time. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm impatient, and I want to get results right away. What we're going to talk about is how to save yourself a year wasted. If that, it could be even longer. It could be years wasted. At least in my experience, it has been. And the antidote was the power of the group, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So, Brian, what's your perspective on wasting time doing things in the marketplace that don't work?
The thing that's most present for me that I see with my clients is when there's a trigger. I have clients that burn in a whole day not being able to make music, not being able to lead because their inner game isn't strong. And so that's just a solo person, and it's even more so with a team.
Mm. So the inner game with a solo person or a team, it's still an inner game. It's the inner game is off, and therefore
The inner
day
and
is
the
wasted.
intra game, how I relate to my team or my market.
Got it. Gail, what about for you?
Yeah, for me personally, and my observation has been whenever I follow direction from someone else that doesn't necessarily resonate with me, but it's the right thing to do. It's what you need to do to succeed.
So the tyranny of should
The
is
spirit should.
kind of how you see it.
And,
Yes.
and the and the permission to break rules. I wish I saw this ant video. There's an ant circled by a sharpie. The ant bounces around this arbitrary little circle for a long time, and then it figures it out. And then the guy draws another circle, and it bounces around the inside of that. That's like all of the gurus and the courses and all of those things bounced around for a long time and realized there's no circle.
Well, ants are really smart because ants work collectively, like bees, right? So the power of the ant working collectively to free themselves from the tyranny of not knowing what to do
Right.
in a way is getting pretty deep, but also in some ways feels like it's part of what we're dealing with sometimes. It's like we feel like little ants out in the marketplace with all these Goliaths wielding the weapons of advertising and marketing and support structures and systems, and then we're just this little ant trying
Oh,
to figure out how do I make a living in this crazy place.
there's a
Yeah,
lot of things to be learned from nature. So me versus gorilla, I lose. Me and 10 of my friends versus 10 gorillas, I lose. Me and 100 of my friends versus 100 gorillas, humans win every time. Every time.
Mm, every time. So if it's a battle, and I know not everyone sees life as a battle to be won. Some people do. A lot of people do see life as a battle to be won within a hierarchy. So a lot of people live in a hierarchical system of people at the top, people in the middle, and people at the bottom. And what they're doing is they're spending all of their time trying to figure out how to get on top or stay on top. So if that's how you see the world, how do you save yourself a year wasted if sometimes you feel like a little ant?
oh, I'm still experiencing some of this outside of our group. And here's how. What you've given us permission, what we've given ourselves permission to do is to think for ourselves and feel for ourselves and go on our own path,
Mm.
right? Permission. And when I go to groups now, there is a leader, and I watch people listen to this leader telling them what they should and should not be doing and coaching them in a you perspective, and I feel like little BB guns are being shot at people. You, right? And it's like, "Oh my god, this is
That's
terrible."
great.
And I
Yeah,
used to be the receiver of those shots and
of
think this is
course.
normal.
Because you feel like an ant, even though you know you're not. You know you're a gorilla, and you know you're a giant, and you know you're a king or a queen or whatever. And then somebody is telling you, "Yeah, but I have more money than you, so I know the answer." I'm like, "Well, I'm feeling the lack of money today." Or someone says, "Well, I'm more popular than you. I have more likes." And you're like, "Well, I'm not feeling liked today, so I better listen to you." And then, like Brian's saying, I took away the permission.
As you're sharing this, I thought about work I was heavily involved with in Iraq and also in Afghanistan. Our mission was to counter improvised explosive devices. That was the weapon of choice.
You can't screw that up, can you?
You can, and it's happened, and it's expensive.
You shouldn't screw that up.
That's how we learn.
The consequences of screwing it up are more significant than having a bad day.
That's true. And so one of the things we did collectively, every night we would roll up the post-blast report. Here's the suicide bombers, here's the vehicle-borne IEDs. And as a collective unit, we would learn from that and start to learn the rules of the network, right? So that was like the British Royal Navy going against the revolutionaries here in the United States, right? So there's a commander's intent, there were rules, and there was an after action process. That's all great stuff. We were combating an enemy that operated in 5-man cells. They could be disconnected from the leader, so they were completely autonomous, and they could react much more quickly than the United or the coalition forces. So they would do interesting things, like they'd learn that we use metal detectors, and so they would make devices that didn't involve any metal. They don't use this anymore, but they used to take matches. And so if I stepped on the matches, that would start the explosive train. There was no way to detect it.
Unbelievable.
So they
How
were
much
using,
does the U.S. government spend on military?
we
What's the
figured
U.S.
out
military budget, annual Defense Department budget? What do you think?
it's $1 trillion reported, and then there's probably 10 times more than that in black budget stuff.
And how much should these Iraqis that were destroying the U.S. military in their country spend?
We figured out that with our training and our equipment, we were spending $60,000 per improvised explosive response.
Interesting.
And they were spending less than $60 to do these really complicated. It was exquisite. It was pure genius because they had to.
They had to.
Because they had to. Now
That's
we're getting somewhere.
That's
So let's
the
bring this into the
entrepreneur.
marketing economy. The marketing economy. I'd love to talk more about Iraq, though, but we got to go. We got to go to the marketing
I
economy.
want to keep it relevant to the entrepreneurs.
We
That's a
are
really
here
powerful story.
for entrepreneurs, coaches, and service providers who are sick of not getting what they want and wasting time.
And they're going up. It feels like you're going against the U.S. military.
Yeah.
The Russell
you are.
Brunsons, the Grant Cardones, the Alex Hermosis. They have an unlimited budget basically compared to, we're trying to create something from nothing.
Correct. Correct.
We previously talked about, that feeling of being pulled and having no choice but to do what I'm doing, right? And how, for me, that got squelched when I started following the directions of the marketing, my marketing coach and my network marketing coach and my content writing coach. And
How many coaches did you have?
I had 5 at one time.
How much?
Right, a bunch, and none of it worked. By the way, a complete failure. I broke down in tears. Right,
Yeah.
and I still had this pull, and that's when I realized that I don't want the coaches. Fired them all, and I had to sit down. What's my voice? What do I even know what that is? That's what I need to bring out.
Don't you need a coach to find your voice?
Some people, yes, but no, I didn't use a
No.
coach.
Coaches will tell you need them to figure out your life because you can't figure that out on your own.
So let's talk about that. So I want to go back to what we're published for this. So the power of the group avoids disaster. So we established the power of the group.
Right.
The power. Well, we didn't really establish it. So the power of the group avoids disaster, as opposed to a coach telling me how to find the power of my voice with their approach that they use to find the power of their voice.
Right. And the power of the group does not have that person in front giving direction.
Correct.
It's too slow.
It's too slow and it
It's too
doesn't
slow.
work at all.
It's
And
like
it's still narrow.
it's like learning computer programming at university. You're 4 years late.
Hmm.
That's a great, can we take a pause on what you just said? Because
I love that.
is so much of this. It's like learning computer programming in a university, which means that you're learning what everyone has already done,
Mhm.
that no one's doing anymore, that's on the bubble of what's next
That's right.
in computer programming. In other words, you're going to end your university studies unemployable
Mhm.
if you're not in the marketplace
Yeah.
doing it the way people who are evolving that industry are programming.
And there was a great technology change. I don't know how to program. I understand it. I understand how the data relates. I understand the science of computer science, but I don't know how to program. I don't need to. I've got ChatGPT.
Boom. That's called the Black Swan event, which
Yep.
is an unexpected event that everyone who's paying attention knows is happening.
Right? How can
In
you
other words,
not
it's
know it's
obvious.
happening? I have to tell you, I want to say almost 10 years ago, a gentleman that I worked with in one of my companies had left the company to be a consultant for the US government on AI.
I've been working in AI since the 2000s.
Yeah.
Same thing. I sold AI business development systems, software from software startup companies as these ad networks were building. Google, Facebook, like all of this stuff. I watched it. I was in the trenches trying to sell this crap and trying to figure out how to make money doing it in this
Yeah.
crazy, turbulent environment. And I now look back and I'm like, wow, they figured out how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
This has been going on for a long time. It's
Yep.
not new. So, power of crowds, wisdom of crowds. I read The Wisdom of Crowds in the 2000s.
Right.
Now it
And
actually works.
and that's what we're talking about, right? The wisdom of the crowd. And that means for me, I learned how to show up without expectations and judgment, but to listen to what your needs are. And I still don't respond with expectations or judgment. I learn from your needs and apply it to maybe something I need that I didn't even know. And in the conversation and bouncing off of you guys, I get my own aha.
You get your own aha as opposed to getting Alex Hermosi's aha that
Right.
worked for him.
Right.
So Alex Hermosi's aha that worked for him being shared in a programmatic way as the way to succeed for someone who feels like they're not successful is a compounding system that leads to disastrous consequences, regardless of Alex Hermosi's high quality intent.
Right.
So
Regardless of the intent.
it's not just a year. In my case, it's 6.
Mhm.
So what I did was I was a bomb technician in the United States Navy. Jumped out of airplanes. I'd look for mines underwater on a rebreather with a handheld
You're
saw.
the guy in the Hurt Locker that
Kind
ended
of.
up going back to Iraq voluntarily.
Kind of. We hate that movie. That's like our G.I. Jane, but yes, that's a good intersection. And so I wrote a program. And like, if you do these things, you can be invincible to fear. What I failed to realize is you first have to overcome stage fright in high school. You then have to find a safe place, even when the body is screaming out in pain. Then you got to figure out how to apply all of that to jumping out of airplanes at night. Then you got to go through PTSD and getting fired from your dream job. Then you got to run out of money. Then you got to go through a divorce, launch a book, and then move to California.
So that's Brian's story, not the movie with Brian Piccolo, but that's this Brian's story right there.
Yeah. So if
And
you've
what
done
you're
those,
seeing right here is the key to this whole thing, which is you have to become an expert in what you're doing, not because you succeeded at doing something, but because you're an expert in the domain that you're in your case, invincibility and how to become free from fear under intense, life-threatening pressure circumstances.
Mhm.
And in my
Expert.
case, it's next level living.
And in my case, it's how to be an entrepreneur and a business developer and succeed when you feel like you're being crushed. Expert.
So what I took from that was I found something, and it gave me a set of principles to point at. Here are the blind spots that I found for me. What are yours?
Yes.
What
What are
works?
You can't
yours?
do that if you're not an expert in the principles.
It's the expert
Right.
in the principles, not the cookbook.
Not, can you explain that a little bit to people? Because that's a little difficult. I'm finding when I'm talking to people,
Yeah.
sometimes they're confusing the cookbook with the principles.
Right.
So let me go to motivation first. I have a friend, his name is John, and every time we talk, he's like, I'm going to learn how to do the Wim Hof breathing method. He's been saying this to me for 15 years. I'm like, John, you're not. He's like, what do you mean? You're not going to do it.
Right.
What? You've been you do it, and you do it a little, and you're like, well, I'm not going to keep doing this. Like for me, 2,600 days in a row of doing breath work, it has nothing to do with discipline. I fucking love it. It turns me on. It focuses my brain. I don't show up to the world without doing breath work first, right? There's nothing to do with, but I found my prescription, and my prescription changes every single day based on what's happening out there and what's happening in here. Even Wim Hof doesn't practice the Wim Hof.
So that's right. That's the key to it right here. I think to simplify this, hopefully it's hard to simplify these complex things, but there is no such thing as a Wim Hof breathing method.
No.
There's how Wim Hof breathes, and then there's the principles he's discovered about breath as an expert in breath that he recognizes will be experienced differently by every single individual that he meets.
That's right.
Right.
Period. And he knows that because he's an expert.
It's
And
not,
mine is the principles of how energy works in your body and how to have a relationship with that to get to the next level of your life.
that's exactly it for Wim. It's have a relationship with your breath.
Right.
Having a relationship with your breath then has somehow been distorted into become like the Iceman because he can do things I wish I could do. I'm not saying me personally, because I have no interest in getting in an ice bath. I've done it, but I don't ever want to do that again because I don't give a shit.
never want to do that, and I'm done.
It has nothing to do with me. So I'm not going to go, but breath matters. Knowing your breath, having a relationship with your breath really matters. How can you get through life if you don't understand and have a relationship with your own breath, right? So,
Or Larry, or do you think you already know that? So I worked with a guy 70 years old. He was responsible for changing public opinion of nation states. He's like, what are you talking about? Breath. I've been doing it for 74 years. Yeah, you have, but you haven't. Right? There's things below the surface that to an expert, the subtleties become huge. And there becomes a lot of leverage in the way I start a question or if I make a statement, right? Like when I'm talking marketing or sales or finding residents. That's the little tiny things start to matter in a way that we've done this so many times. It's just second nature.
The little tiny, I want to put another point on this too, is the biggest danger is not only to waste a year, but waste your entire life going in the wrong direction. Because what happens is over time, those compounding directional errors lead to veering into the wilderness and never getting back. It's that significant of how the wrong decision by copying somebody else compounds itself
Right.
into going in the wrong direction.
And I look at it when I explain to people about shifts in trajectory, that this might be your goal. It doesn't mean you have to make a major shift. It's just a small little change compounds and gets you to your goal. And what you're talking about is a small change gets you past your goal or overshoots your goal.
Yes.
Right? Go ahead.
So let's take this back to the group for a second.
Yes.
So dead reckoning in orientation or in navigation involves shooting bearings to towers, natural features and those things, right? And so if I have those natural features, I can figure it out for myself. I can use KPIs, those types of things. There's some things that I lie to myself about. That's crazy, right? Like I don't know what I don't know.
So if you're lying to yourself, you can't see that by yourself. So if you're by yourself, correct?
That's it. And Gail, you inspired this because if I want to go here and my KPIs tell me I'm here, but Larry, the last time we did this, you're like, you don't speak really well on these things. So I was actually here. So the course that I plotted and the strategy that I made was for that slope. What the group does for me is like, you're not where you think you are. Like, you got to go back to the fundamentals, adjust your course and speed to get to where you actually want. I can't lie to my team because they love me.
Right. Yeah, we love each other, right?
Right.
Yeah,
And we
we
don't
do.
tell you how,
Yeah.
right? We just
I can't
question.
imagine ever going to you, Gail, and saying, Gail, here's how I did this. And I think my advice to you is this. You'd be like, fuck you.
I have said that.
Right?
Like, no, I actually say that doesn't resonate. And Brian will say that doesn't resonate. And, my response will be, oh, okay, so I'm not talking to you, Brian. I'm talking about my experience. And you'll
Correct.
be like, oh, okay,
I don't need
right,
your advice. What I
right,
need is your perspective
right,
and your experience. I need
right.
to know, is my experiment making sense? Because I'm confused, because I know I've been doing this new thing I'm really excited about for 4 weeks now, and it's not working. What's going on? I'm trying to figure out what's going on. If anybody in our group steps in and says, well, here's what's going on, and gives me their opinion, judgment, or conviction, or advice around it, and I believe them and follow them, I'm going to go farther away from the bearing.
But we might
different,
say,
different.
Larry, what I feel when you talk about that is this. And Brian might have a completely different perspective and say, what I'm feeling or experiencing is that. But collectively, you can take these pieces and go, oh, crap, I got it now.
You just tied it back to the beginning.
Right?
So save yourself a year wasted was the banner on LinkedIn. Save yourself a year wasted. The power of the group avoids disaster. That's exactly what happened in that moment. Because I was able to do that, I'm talking about myself now.
Mhm.
I could see, oh, you're lecturing. Stop it.
Right.
Yes.
Done.
Right.
And one of the things we experienced directly, Larry, I was noticing when you would present, it was, I'm right, you're wrong. I had a failed business because I said, I'm a bomb technician. You're doing fear wrong. Do it how I say. It reminds me of that. We worked together on that. And now, Larry, you show up with this really wise, grandfatherly energy. So we still have the ability to speak our truth and share our experience as a way to clear a blind spot that I wouldn't have been able to see on my own.
This is so I'm reading Robert McKee's book Story. He's he's the master of Hollywood screenwriting. Like anybody in Hollywood or they know Robert McKee. And I'm reading his book, and it's substance, structure, style, and the principles of screenwriting. And it's exactly what you just said. And he said the issue is great story, bad structure. Okay, that's a problem. That's a bad script that leads to a bad movie. Bad story, great structure, that leads to somebody trying to get a hit. Also a shitty movie. So it's got to come together. So great story, meaning your inner truth. Great structure, meaning principles, which is what we're talking about here, leads to original creation in the world. What does that lead to? Then the Goliath slingshot, the David slingshot against the Goliath, where you don't have to spend all this money on marketing and be like Grant Cardone or Russell Brunson.
And
the
go ahead,
writer
Brian.
doesn't have to spell out specifically what you're supposed to learn from this.
Yes.
I just watched Good Will Hunting. I've seen that movie 6 times. This time I had such a breakthrough because of all the principle work. I could see the principles operating in plain sight.
Yes.
And it was such a rich experience because the writer and the actors didn't say, hey, this is what you're going to learn. It gave me the space to have these powerful aha moments that are really, really relevant to my life right now.
I swear to God, that's in the book. Like I was reading this yesterday, so I got to read. So I have to do this, and then I'm going to stand for 5 more minutes, but afterwards. But I have to do this. It's right in here because I think it's so important when you're communicating with people. I'm not going to be able to find it fast enough, but basically, what he's talking about in the book is space. It's give the audience the opportunity to be in the tension of watching that protagonist go through the thing they're going through. Like, stop explaining it to them. Let them find their own way into that story.
And I have to tell you guys, so I watched Deadpool yesterday, and that's the same experience that I had, Brian, watching Deadpool. I loved that so much more than the others because there was more space in this. He wasn't as busy as he is in the previous shows, and so I was able to really fill in that space with my perspective. I
Well,
loved it. It was
Wait, what's
great.
Deadpool?
the Ryan
Deadpool.
Reynolds
He's
character.
yeah,
Mark.
he's a dark savior.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Yeah, he's
It's
not
like
wanted by
Batman without
anybody.
a filter.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, no
Batman
filter.
without the filter. That
No
sounds good.
filters.
I want to name something I'm experiencing right now. So the experience I'm having versus you listening to this. So we've been working together a long time, and there's certain things that we do to tune to each other. And so what I'm experiencing right now is we're sharing one mind, all three perspectives collectively, and noticing a flow state. This is where major break. So you guys are witnessing real time major breakthroughs in being more relatable to you. So thank you, audience, for being here and drawing this out of us. This is our shared vision. How do we learn more? How can we share more of the principles that might be relevant to you? And this is a two-way conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. And I want to read something from the LinkedIn, a description, because it fits with what you said. Being an original in a group of originals is the solution. One bad apple spoils the bunch, or a guru who knows scares away those who won't submit. And that is it right there. And if you're an entrepreneur, a coach, or a service provider and feel crushed by this influencer economy and you're not getting what you want within it, that is what we're talking about. It's being an original in a group of originals is the solution we came up with because it's what we wanted. And we had to opt out of everything else. Now, I'm speaking specifically about myself and what that means. And Gail and Brian have their own version of it, and everyone else does. I don't go to networking events anymore where people talk about how to get clients. Brian likes going to them sometimes.
That
Are you
opinion.
done with it now?
Yeah.
It's just such an easy thing to spot now. Like, are we enhancing each other, or are you trying to get something from me? And so really following, are we sharing or is somebody taking in this relationship?
Yeah. And my experience now is when I reach out to people and connect with people, I'm not selling to them. I want to resonate with them. And 100% of the time I get, this has been a very interesting and enlightening conversation. Thank you.
Mm.
And then, will we do business together? Maybe, maybe not. It doesn't matter. And that's what's important. It doesn't matter. So when it happens, it's a celebration moment.
Yeah. And it takes courage because, if you got 100 million in the bank, it still takes courage because you got your own stuff you're dealing with. And it doesn't matter whether you're broke or not broke, or it has nothing to do with your external environment. It has to do with your inner feeling
Right.
about your own life and how complete you feel. In other words, prosperity.
Mhm.
Right.
All right. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to stay on for another 10.
Thank you so much. This has been fun. It always is.
Yep. All right. I'm going to stay on for another 10 minutes here. Bye, Gail. And I want to talk a little bit about what we're talking about. So hopefully my dogs won't bark. But I started really working through this book yesterday, and I'm at a coffee shop in Winnetka, which is near where I live, in Skevinston, which is West Evanston, north of Chicago. So there's a lot of good coffee shops. So I work in the morning here, home office, do my meetings, and then I take off. And sometimes I spend hours driving around. Sometimes I go to the beach. and sit there. I'll be going out on my sailboat pretty soon, probably tomorrow. Or I go to a coffee shop and I write and think. And I realize that's my work. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, was to make that my work. Because I saw my work as, I got to go get clients. So people think, well, of course you can do it. You got all this money. Well, it depends how you define money. So there's a term in business called cash flow, free cash available. So cash flow is money flowing into the business that allows you the freedom to be able to free yourself from the kinds of daily routines or challenges or difficulties that you may have, to go live on your own terms. Now, to me, it's like cheating. And I've had situations like that. So I'm in a situation, and have been for a long time, because of my entrepreneur experiment with what I'm doing now with Red Pill Pathway and the Entrepreneur Experience, where I don't have any free cash flow, because I risked everything on this vision. And I'm saying this because I want you to understand it's possible to be yourself fully on a regular basis, consistently in your life, and be struggling with cash and being on the razor's edge all the time without being concerned about it. But you're concerned. So I'm not saying I'm not concerned about cash flow. I'm saying I'm not going to allow fear to become my experience. So liberation from fear of, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, this business has got to take off now after 4 years, is replaced, and now I'd say for the first time in my life, with the feeling of, the deeper I experience this feeling of prosperity, the more prosperous, therefore, I will become. And then the definition of prosperity is inner defined. So I had to think, how do I see prosperity? And it was how I act every day. And what I want to do is not go chase clients. I've been doing it since I was 21 years old. 21 years old. I know how to sell. I know business development. I know how to do it. What I do know is I'm going to lose the marketing game, because Russell Brunson, Alex Hormozi, Evan Carmichael, all of those people have U.S. military style budgets. And Russell Brunson taught me this in his secrets books. Dan Kennedy from Magnetic Marketing, he bought Dan Kennedy's company for millions of dollars so he could have the content, said, whoever spends the most on advertising wins. Well, how does Russell spend all that money on advertising? He uses a concept called the break-even funnel. So the break-even funnel is a way to get your customers to pay for your advertising. So I'm trying to figure out how to do this back in 2020. And after a while, I realized I can't do this. And then my partner that I was doing it with said, I'm getting worried about this concept. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he said, well, what if we make a mistake? This is a pretty big media buy we're trying to figure out. So I stuck with it for another 2 years. This idea of I got to get famous on social media and figure out marketing and the influencer economy and like on and on and on and on. And then it was fun, sort of, but it was fear-based for me, because it was a feeling of, I'm going to fall behind. I'm too old. I can't keep up on the technology. It's too complex. I've read all these stupid books about marketing. I like them, but I'm like, I can't do this. And I realized neither can they. They have a whole team. So I'm like, who is this joke being played on? And I'm like, well, you're not playing this joke on me. And I'm holding this gift, this book, and there's not an answer in this book either. There's just more tools and ideas that are fun for me because I like this. This is what I do. I'm a generalist. I'm a creator in my thinking process of new things, new ways to live, new ways to do things, ways of tying things in together from other places. And what I found is there's no job in the society for me because no one pays anybody to do that. It doesn't exist. I can't find the career. I've been trying since I was 17 years old to find a career to do that. Nobody pays for that. We have structures. They're like, no, you go in this structure, you this hole, this hole, this hole, this hole, this one's called investment banker, this one's called history professor, this one's called professional corporate entrepreneur. There's a structure. So that's a hole, or a hole, round hole. I forget what, square peg. I'm a red peg person, an original entrepreneur, not a corporate entrepreneur that followed a corporate entrepreneur how to succeed pathway through an incubator and copied other billionaires. I'm not a billionaire that did that. It's not going to work for me. I can't find me in the structure because there isn't a place for that. I have to create it. And that's not necessarily the case for you, because you may have a place in the structure, but you can't find it. So maybe you're someone who shouldn't work for themselves. You should find an entrepreneur that built a great company that's fun to work in, because it's a great place. So this came with this idea of what if, imagine this, get like John Lennon here. Imagine a world where entrepreneurs created everything and we're still involved, not running it. You don't want me running anything. But I'm thinking about, what is it there for? The company's for the people in it, the market around it, the society that surrounds it. It's there for a reason. It's there for a reason. So with the entrepreneur spirit imbued in that company, it can be a beautiful thing for eternity, or as long as it lasts. Look at Starbucks. It's crap. So kids call this mid. Mid means not great, well, it's everywhere. So I gotta go to Starbucks. Some people love Starbucks. Well, you like mid crap because you got no taste. That's my judgment, because I think it's crappy, because it's a drive-through. Like, what is that? What are you, McDonald's or a cool coffee shop? When Howard Schultz figured it out, he'd been in Italy and he's like, wow, look at all these great coffee shops. It's a third place. He got the idea of the third place. Well, that's why they have them in Europe, because everyone has dinky little apartments. So I want to go hang out. And it's great. I lived in Paris for a while. It's awesome. I spent a lot of time in Spain and Italy and all these places. It's great. Great. I love the third place concept. I love it. So I'm going to do this afternoon. Go to my third place, or one of them. I got a million of them. They're okay. They're not great. Starbucks is one of the worst. It's like a drive-through. What the hell happened? What the hell happened? So it was a great idea. I remember when it started in my neighborhood in the city in Chicago, and our neighbor was one of the first baristas in Chicago. And he was so excited. He's like, I'm a barista. I'm like, what the hell's a barista? He says, well, you make coffee and you learn how to make coffee. And I'm like, well, that's awesome. Can I come? He's like, of course. He said, yeah, it's a coffee shop. Like, coffee shop, that's great. And I went, and I'm like, it's okay. I lived in Paris. So I was like, it's not bad. It could have got better. Instead, they went the other direction. Why? Money. What would happen if Howard had been able to get funds without going to the public stock market, because Howard cares. He cared. Of course he cared. He's the entrepreneur. And then he had to come back and fix it because he's like, oh my God, what have you guys done? This place is horrible. It's like a drive-through. It's like McDonald's. Like, it's a coffee machine factory. It's like a coffee processing facility for the investors. Original entrepreneurs, that changes everything, but they have to be funded by other original entrepreneurs who have money, who can let that entrepreneur do it. So I think I got off on a tangent, but maybe not. I don't know. So here's the topic we went over. Save yourself a year wasted. The power of the group avoids disaster. Entrepreneurs love the freedom felt by those who blaze their own trail through life and business. Howard Schultz blazed his own trail through life and business. Most waste years running in the wrong direction fast or struggling with the friction that comes when you find the right pathway forward. You make somebody like a Howard Schultz with a group of Howard Schultzes, all being originals, with people who have money, people who have nothing but great ideas, people who are at the beginning of the journey but have the spirit. Imagine that world. That's what we've got. That's what we're creating right now, right here on the Entrepreneur Experience Virtual Campus. This is what I'm doing. This is what we're doing, not just me. This is what we're doing. So people like us, entrepreneurs, and coaches and service providers too, coaches who just want to help people and service providers who just want to do good work and be great at the thing they're great at, can come together and not waste years running in the wrong direction and struggling with the friction that's inevitable in this marketplace where the arms race around marketing and getting known and getting visible has become untenable for most of us. The power of the group overcomes this intractable problem. We're talking about what we talked about is learn why it's not necessary to compromise your vision to become part of the group. Gail's vision, my vision, and Brian's vision are totally different. Totally different. But we have a shared desire. What is that? Better entrepreneur experience. I'm an entrepreneur with vision, want to create things. Brian and Gail want to help people. They've got a different approach, a different vision, a different idea of what good and success means than me. Why would I impose mine on them? That doesn't make any sense. We have a shared desire, though, a better self-employment experience on our own terms, doing what we want all the time and never doing anything we don't want to do and using the group to support it. That's the whole idea. How do you do this? Being original in a group of originals is a solution. Who's an original? Every human being on the planet is an original. So that's why I decided I don't want this to be an elite mastermind with a big buy-in. I don't want that. I don't want a group only Howard Schultz can afford. I don't want that. I don't want that. I want everybody to be able to come, but there's certain guidelines. One bad apple spoils the bunch. Well, one person in here with a ton of opinions is going to screw everything up because they're confused. And then that person says, well, I know what you need to do. So we have a way of avoiding that problem because it happened and the guy left because I said, well, you can't do that. He's like, do what? So we figured out a way, or I figured out a way with help from the group to kindly help someone not project their idea of success onto somebody else and give them some space to allow themselves to figure themselves out. Or a guru who scares away those who won't submit. That would be me, where I'm like, no, submit to my feeling of what, that's Grant Cardone. Submit to my concept of what life's supposed to be. 10x, 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 10x. That's bullshit. But it works for him. And it works for people who need a guru like him to get them with some confidence so they can move forward. So I'm not saying it's bad. It worked. It works for them. All right. That's it.